Most people spend their entire lives trying to be liked and end up never being respected. They speak too quickly, explain too much, react too emotionally, and slowly, without realizing it, they train others to take them lightly. You may think respect comes from status, from money, from force, but that is shallow respect, and it disappears the moment conditions change. Real respect is psychological, it is quiet, it is felt before it is understood, and in the Buddhist path, it comes from one thing most people avoid: mastery over the self. When your mind is steady, when your reactions are controlled, when your presence is not desperate for approval, people sense it immediately. They may not know why, but they adjust their behavior around you. Today you will understand 7 psychological behaviors rooted in Buddhist awareness that make people take you seriously, not by forcing them, but by becoming someone they cannot ignore. 1. You stop explaining yourself to everyone. You feel the urge to explain because you want to be understood. That sounds reasonable on the surface, but if you are honest with yourself, most of the time it is not about clarity, it is about control. You are trying to control how people see you, how they judge you, how they interpret your actions. And the moment you depend on controlling perception, you lose your center. Watch your own behavior closely. Someone misunderstands you, and instantly your mind starts building a defense. You replay what happened. You think about what you should say. You prepare explanations in your head. You want to fix the image before it becomes wrong in their eyes. This reaction feels automatic, almost necessary, but it is not coming from strength. It is coming from fear. Fear of being seen incorrectly, fear of being rejected, fear of losing approval. In Buddhist understanding, this is attachment to identity. You have created a version of yourself in your mind, and now you are trying to protect it. You want others to see you as fair, intelligent, kind, capable, and when something threatens that image, you rush to repair it through words. But here is the problem. The more you try to control how others see you, the more unstable you become, because their perception is not in your control. No matter how perfectly you explain yourself, people will still interpret you based on their own biases, their own experiences, their own emotional state. So what happens when you keep explaining? Your words lose weight, not because what you are saying is wrong, but because of the energy behind it. When you over-explain, people feel the insecurity underneath your words. They sense that you are trying to convince them, not simply express yourself. And when someone is trying too hard to be understood, it signals that they are not fully grounded in their own position. Think about it. The people you naturally respect, do they constantly explain themselves? Do they rush to justify every action? Or do they speak when necessary and remain silent when it is not? There is a difference in presence. One feels like it is seeking approval. The other feels like it is rooted in certainty. When you stop explaining everything, something uncomfortable will happen at first. You will feel exposed. Your mind will tell you that people are misunderstanding you. It will push you to say more, to clarify, to correct. But this discomfort is not a sign that you are doing something wrong. It is a sign that you are breaking a habit. Silence, in this context, is not weakness. It is discipline. It is the decision to let your actions speak instead of your constant commentary. It is the willingness to be misunderstood by some people without losing your inner balance. And this is where your power begins to grow. Because when you are not constantly explaining, people are forced to observe instead of relying on your words. They start paying attention to your behavior, your consistency, your patterns, and over time this creates a stronger, more stable perception than any explanation ever could. Also understand this clearly. Not everyone deserves an explanation. This is something most people struggle to accept. You think that fairness means explaining yourself to everyone, but that is not true. Wisdom is knowing when explanation is useful and when it is wasted. If someone genuinely wants to understand you, they will listen with openness. A simple, clear explanation is enough. You do not need to repeat yourself, expand endlessly, or defend every detail. But if someone is already committed to misunderstanding you, no amount of explanation will change their mind. In fact, the more you explain, the more material you give them to twist, question, or dismiss. So you must learn to distinguish between these situations. Speak when it brings clarity. Stay silent when it only feeds confusion. Another important shift happens when you stop over-explaining. Your relationship with yourself changes. You begin to trust your own decisions more. You no longer feel the need to seek external validation for every action. You act, and you stand by your action without immediately needing approval. This does not mean becoming arrogant or closed off. It means becoming stable. You are still open to feedback. You are still willing to correct yourself when necessary. But you are no longer desperate to prove that you are right. In Buddhism, this is connected to non-attachment. You are not attaching yourself to being seen in a certain way. You are not clinging to an image. You are simply acting with awareness and letting the outcome unfold. And here is what most people do not realize. When you stop explaining yourself constantly, people start taking your words more seriously. Because now, when you do choose to speak, it feels intentional, it feels deliberate, it carries weight. Instead of 10 sentences trying to justify something, you might say one clear sentence and then remain silent. That silence is not empty, it is full of certainty, and people feel it. They may not consciously analyze it, but they sense the difference. They sense that you are not easily shaken. They sense that you are not trying to win them over. And this creates a shift in how they treat you. Respect is not built through constant communication. It is built through controlled communication, through knowing when to speak and when to let silence do the work. So the next time you feel that urge to explain everything, pause. Ask yourself a simple question. Am I speaking to bring clarity, or am I speaking to protect my image? If it is clarity, keep it simple and direct. Say what is needed and stop. If it is protection, let it go. Allow the discomfort. Let people think what they want for a moment, because the more you practice this, the more you will realize something important. You do not need to control every perception. You do not need to be understood by everyone. You only need to be grounded in yourself. And from that place, respect comes naturally, not because you demanded it, but because your presence no longer asks for permission to exist. 2. You become comfortable with silence. Most people are not afraid of speaking. They are afraid of silence. The moment a conversation slows down, something inside them becomes restless. They feel pressure to say something, anything, just to fill the gap. They joke, they ramble, they repeat themselves, they speak without thinking, and without realizing it, they train others to see them as noise instead of presence. Look closely at your own behavior. When a pause happens, what do? Do you immediately jump in to keep the conversation alive? Do you feel awkward if there is nothing to say? That discomfort is not random. It comes from a deeper fear, the fear of being unnoticed, the fear of being irrelevant, the fear that if you are not constantly contributing, you will lose your place. But in Buddhist understanding, silence is not emptiness. Silence is awareness. It is the space where you are not reacting, not performing, not trying to prove anything. It is where you simply observe. And that changes everything. When you become comfortable with silence, you stop speaking out of pressure. You stop filling space just to avoid discomfort. Instead, you begin to choose your words. You speak because there is something worth saying, not because there is space to fill. This one shift immediately changes how people experience you, because now your words are not constant, they are selective. And anything that is selective naturally feels more valuable. Think about it. If someone talks non-stop, you stop listening. Their words blur together. But if someone speaks less, and only when necessary, you start paying attention. You become curious about what they will say next. Their silence creates anticipation, and their words carry more weight. But this is not just about external perception. It is about internal control. When you are comfortable with silence, you are no longer controlled by the need to be heard. You are not dependent on reactions, responses, or validation in every moment. You can sit in a conversation without forcing your presence into it. This is where real strength begins, because silence also gives you something most people never develop, the ability to observe deeply. When you are not busy talking, you start noticing things. You notice tone, body language, hesitation, contradictions. You see how people reveal themselves, not just through what they say, but through how they say it. And this awareness gives you an advantage. You are no longer reacting blindly. You are responding with understanding. Another important truth is this: people respect those who are not easy to read. When you talk too much, you reveal everything. Your thoughts, your insecurities, your intentions all become visible. But when you are comfortable with silence, you create space around yourself. You are not hiding, but you are not exposing everything either. This creates a natural sense of depth. People feel that there is more to you than what is immediately visible, and that alone increases respect. But do not misunderstand this. Silence is not about becoming distant or cold. It is not about refusing to engage or acting superior. That is ego, not awareness. True silence is calm, grounded, and present. You are fully there, you are just not speaking unnecessarily. There is also a discipline in silence that most people avoid. It forces you to face your own thoughts. When you are not constantly talking or distracting yourself, your mind becomes louder. You notice your impulses, your judgments, your reactions. And at first, this can feel uncomfortable. But this discomfort is necessary, because this is where you begin to understand yourself. And when you understand yourself, you are no longer controlled by unconscious habits. So instead of escaping silence, you start using it. In conversations, you pause before responding. Not to create tension, but to create clarity. You allow the other person's words to settle. You give yourself a moment to choose your response instead of reacting instantly. And this alone makes you appear more composed, more thoughtful, more serious. People start to feel that you are not easily rushed. You are not easily pressured. You take your time. And that creates a sense of stability around you. Also understand this: when you are silent, you are not giving up power. You are holding it. Because you are not giving away your thoughts impulsively. You are not reacting emotionally. You are staying centered. And over time, this changes how people treat you. They stop interrupting you. They listen more carefully when you speak. They become more aware of their own words in your presence, not because you demanded respect, but because your presence requires it. The real shift happens when silence no longer feels like something you have to endure. It becomes something you are comfortable in. You can sit in it without anxiety. You can allow moments to pass without filling them. You are not trying to control the flow of every interaction. And from that place, your communication becomes stronger, not weaker. Because now, when you speak, it is intentional, it is clear, it is grounded. You are not reacting to fill space. You are responding from awareness. So the next time you feel that urge to speak, just to avoid silence, pause. Let the silence stay. Notice what happens inside you. Notice the discomfort and do not run from it. Because on the other side of that discomfort is control. And when you have control over your need to speak, you gain control over how you are perceived, not by forcing attention, but by becoming someone whose presence is felt even without words. 3. You do not react immediately. Your first reaction is not who you are. It is what you have been conditioned to be. It is built from past experiences, emotional habits, ego, fear, and unconscious patterns that have repeated for years, and yet most people treat their first reaction as truth. Someone says something slightly disrespectful, and you feel heat rise instantly. Someone ignores you, and your mind starts creating stories. Someone challenges you, and you feel the need to defend yourself immediately. This speed, this urgency to react, is where most people lose their power without even realizing it. Because the moment you react without awareness, you are no longer in control. You are being controlled. Controlled by your emotions, by your ego, by your need to protect yourself or prove something. And when people see that they can trigger you easily, even in small ways, something changes in how they treat you. They may not consciously think, "I can control this person," but they feel it. They sense that your state depends on external events, and anything that depends on external triggers is unstable. In Buddhist practice, there is a deep understanding of this space between what happens and how you respond to it. This space is small, almost invisible at first, but it is where your freedom exists. It is where you stop being a reaction and start becoming a choice. Most people never develop this space. They live in a constant loop. Something happens, they react. Something happens, they react again. There is no pause, no awareness, no separation, and because of that, their behavior becomes predictable. And predictable behavior is easy to manipulate. But when you train yourself to pause, even for a few seconds, you break that pattern. You create distance between the event and your response. And in that distance, something powerful happens. You begin to see clearly. Instead of reacting with emotion, you observe the situation. You notice what was actually said, not just how it made you feel. You recognize your own internal reaction, but you do not let it control you. You give yourself time to decide, is this worth responding to? And if it is, how should I respond in a way that reflects who I choose to be, not just what I feel in this moment? This shift is not easy. At first, it feels unnatural. Your mind will push you to react quickly. It will tell you that if you don't respond immediately, you will look weak, you will lose control, you will be disrespected. But that is an illusion. Immediate reaction is not strength. It is impulsiveness. Real strength is calm control. Think about someone who cannot be provoked easily. Someone who does not jump into arguments, who does not get pulled into emotional chaos, who does not feel the need to defend themselves at every small trigger. There is something about that person that feels solid. You cannot push them around emotionally. You cannot predict how they will respond. And because of that, you naturally treat them with more care. When you do not react immediately, you remove yourself from the emotional game most people are playing. You are no longer operating at the level of impulse. You are operating at the level of awareness, and this creates a gap between you and others that is immediately noticeable. Another important aspect of this is that not every situation deserves a reaction. This is where most people go wrong. They think that silence or delayed response means weakness, but in reality, reacting to everything is what weakens you. It shows that you are available to every trigger, every comment, every opinion. When you choose not to react, you are not ignoring reality. You are choosing where to place your energy. You are deciding what matters and what does not. And that decision alone builds a sense of authority around you. Because people quickly learn something about you. They learn that you are not easy to engage emotionally. They learn that they cannot get a quick reaction from you. And when they cannot control your reaction, they lose the ability to control the interaction. Also understand this. When you pause before responding, your words become more precise. You are not speaking from a place of heat or urgency. You are speaking from clarity. And clarity always carries more weight than emotion. Instead of saying something you might regret, you say something intentional. Instead of escalating a situation, you stabilize it. Instead of proving a point, you express a truth. And this difference is felt immediately. Over time, this behavior creates a strong internal shift. You become less reactive, not just externally, but internally. Your mind becomes calmer. Your emotional spikes become less intense. You start to see situations more objectively, and this gives you a kind of control that most people never develop. In Buddhism, this is part of mindfulness. It is the practice of observing without immediate judgment, without immediate reaction. It is the understanding that you are not your first thought, not your first feeling. You are the awareness behind them, and when you operate from that awareness, your behavior changes in a way that others cannot easily explain, but they can clearly feel. They feel that you are not easily shaken. They feel that you are not desperate to win every moment. They feel that you are grounded in something deeper than temporary emotions, and this creates respect. Not forced, not demanded, but natural. So the next time something triggers you, do not rush to respond. Do not let the moment control you. Pause, breathe, observe what is happening inside you. Let the initial reaction pass, then choose your response, because in that choice is the difference between being controlled by the world and having control over yourself. And the moment people realize that you cannot be controlled easily is the moment they begin to take you seriously. 4. You let people reveal themselves. One of the biggest mistakes you keep making is deciding too quickly who someone is. You meet someone, you hear a few words, you see a few behaviors, and your mind immediately forms a conclusion. You label them as trustworthy, disrespectful, intelligent, fake, loyal, or dangerous, all within a very short time. And once that label is formed, you stop observing. You start interacting based on your assumption, not reality. This is where you lose clarity, because people are not revealed in moments, they are revealed in patterns. And patterns take time. When you rush to judge, you interrupt the natural process of understanding. You either trust too early and get disappointed later, or you reject too quickly and miss what was actually there. Both come from the same problem, impatience mixed with ego. You want certainty fast. You want to feel like you understand people quickly, but that speed comes at the cost of accuracy. In Buddhist awareness, observation is not passive. It is active, disciplined, and intentional. You are not just watching people casually, you are paying attention without interference. You are allowing them to speak, to act, to express themselves over time. And instead of reacting to every small thing, you are collecting information quietly. This changes everything, because when you stop trying to figure people out immediately, they start revealing themselves naturally. People cannot hide who they are forever. Their habits expose them. Their reactions under pressure expose them. The way they treat others when there is nothing to gain exposes them. But you will only see this if you give them time and space. Most people don't do this. They interrupt the process. They ask too many direct questions. They push for answers. They confront too early, or they project their own expectations onto the other person. And because of that, they never actually see the person clearly. They only see what they want to see or what they expect to see. When you learn to step back and observe, something shifts in your presence. You are no longer easy to read. You are no longer predictable in your reactions. You are not rushing to agree, not rushing to disagree, not rushing to reveal your position. And this creates a subtle pressure on the other person, because now they feel that they are being watched, not judged, but understood. And when someone feels that you are paying attention at that level, they become more careful. They think more about what they say. They reveal more than they intend, simply because you are not interrupting them. This is where respect begins to grow, not because you demanded it, not because you asserted dominance, but because your awareness created a different kind of interaction. You are not engaging at the surface level. You are operating from depth. Another important shift happens when you stop reacting immediately to what people show you. Instead of jumping to conclusions, you hold your judgment. You allow contradictions to exist for a while. Someone might act kind in one moment and selfish in another. Instead of labeling them instantly, you observe the pattern. You wait. You watch what repeats. And this patience gives you accuracy, because a single action can be misleading, but repeated behavior reveals truth. When you operate like this, your responses become sharper. You are not guessing. You are not reacting emotionally. You are responding based on what you have consistently observed. And when your actions come from that level of clarity, people feel it. They feel that you are not naive. They feel that you cannot be easily fooled, and this naturally changes how they behave around you. They become more careful with their words. They think twice before acting carelessly. They sense that you are not someone they can manipulate easily, not because you said anything directly, but because your presence communicates awareness. Also understand this clearly. Letting people reveal themselves does not mean being passive or allowing disrespect. It means you do not rush to react to every small signal. You give space for the full picture to emerge before you decide how to engage. When real disrespect becomes clear, your response is calm and precise. You are not emotional. You are not explosive. You are not overreacting. You simply act based on what you have observed, and that action carries more weight because it is not impulsive. Most people react too early and too emotionally. That makes their reactions easy to dismiss. But when you respond after observing, after understanding, your response feels final. It feels grounded, and people take it seriously. There is also a deeper benefit to this approach. You stop projecting your own expectations onto others. You stop assuming that people think like you, feel like you, or will behave the way you would. Instead, you see them as they are. This reduces disappointment, because you are not building false images in your mind. You are dealing with reality. In Buddhism, this is connected to seeing clearly, without distortion, without attachment, without illusion. You are not adding your own story on top of what is happening. You are simply observing what is, and from that place, your decisions become stronger. You trust more carefully. You distance yourself more wisely. You engage more intentionally, and people feel that difference. They feel that you are not easily impressed, not easily convinced, not easily pulled into situations. They sense that you are grounded in observation, not emotion. And that creates a quiet authority, because when someone knows that you see patterns, they cannot rely on short-term impressions to influence you. They cannot perform once and expect your trust. They cannot hide behind words alone. They have to be consistent, and consistency is where most people fail. So by simply being patient and observant, you create a standard without ever saying it out loud. And that is what makes this powerful. You are not controlling others. You are not forcing anything. You are simply allowing truth to reveal itself and responding accordingly. So the next time you meet someone, slow down. Do not rush to decide who they are. Do not rush to trust or reject. Watch, listen, notice patterns. Let time do its work. Because the more you allow people to reveal themselves, the less you will need to guess. And when you stop guessing, your presence becomes something people cannot easily deceive, and that alone commands respect. 5. You are not easily impressed. Most people give away their attention too quickly. They see confidence, status, money, popularity, or a strong personality, and immediately they react. Their tone changes, their energy shifts. They become more agreeable, more eager, more impressed. It happens so fast they don't even notice it. But the other person notices. People are extremely sensitive to how they affect you. The moment they feel that you are impressed by them, the balance changes. You have already placed them above you, and once that happens, respect becomes difficult to maintain. This is not about arrogance. It is about awareness. There is a difference between appreciating something and being controlled by it. Most people are not appreciating, they are reacting. They are being pulled by external signals. And in Buddhist understanding, this is attachment to form. You are reacting to appearances, to surface-level indicators, to things that are temporary and often misleading. Think about how easily people are influenced. A confident voice makes them assume intelligence. A well-dressed person makes them assume success. A strong opinion makes them assume authority. But none of these things guarantee depth, integrity, or stability. Yet people react as if they do. And this reaction gives away their position immediately. When you are easily impressed, you stop observing, you stop questioning, you accept what is presented without looking deeper. And because of that, you become easy to influence. Your behavior becomes predictable. You move toward what looks powerful without verifying if it actually is. But when you are grounded within yourself, this changes completely. You still see what is in front of you. You recognize confidence, success, intelligence, or skill, but you are not pulled by it. Your internal state remains steady. You do not rush to admire. You do not rush to agree. You do not rush to place value before understanding it fully. This creates a very different presence, because now your attention is not cheap, it is not easily triggered, it is not automatically given, and anything that is not easily given becomes valuable. People are used to being reacted to. They expect validation. They expect others to respond to their energy, their status, their presentation. But when you do not react in the expected way, it disrupts that pattern. It creates a moment of uncertainty. They begin to question, why is this person not impressed? Why is their energy stable? Why are they not responding the way others do? And in that moment, the dynamic shifts. You are no longer chasing value. You are evaluating it. This is where respect begins to grow, because respect is not given to those who admire too quickly. It is given to those who remain centered, to those who are not easily moved by surface-level signals, to those who take their time to see what is real. Another important aspect of this is emotional control. When you are easily impressed, you are also easily disappointed. You swing between admiration and frustration based on what you see in the moment. This instability affects how people experience you. It makes your reactions inconsistent, and inconsistency weakens your presence. But when you are not easily impressed, your emotional state becomes stable. You are not reacting to every change in the environment. You are observing it without being pulled into it. And this stability creates a sense of calm authority. People feel that you are not dependent on what is happening around you. You are not influenced by appearances alone, and that makes you harder to manipulate. Also understand this clearly. Being unimpressed does not mean being cold or dismissive. It does not mean ignoring others or acting superior. That is ego, not awareness. True stability is quiet. You can acknowledge someone's strengths without losing your center. You can respect what is real without exaggerating it. You are not denying value. You are simply not reacting blindly to it. There is also a deeper shift that happens when you stop being easily impressed. You start valuing substance over appearance. You pay attention to consistency, to behavior over time, to how someone handles pressure, to how they treat others when there is nothing to gain. And this gives you a clearer understanding of people. Because surface-level traits can be performed, anyone can act confident for a moment, anyone can present themselves in a certain way, but consistency cannot be faked for long. Depth cannot be imitated easily. When you train yourself to look beyond the surface, you naturally become more selective in what you respect. And this selectiveness increases your own value, because now your approval is not automatic. It is earned, and people feel that. They sense that you are not reacting based on appearances. They realize that they cannot influence you with superficial signals. And this forces a shift in how they engage with you. They become more genuine. They become more careful. They focus less on impressing you and more on being real. And this is exactly where you want the interaction to be. Another thing to understand is this. When you are easily impressed, you are constantly comparing yourself to others. You see someone who appears more successful or more confident, and you feel a subtle shift in your own position. You either try to match them or you feel slightly lower. But when you are grounded, this comparison disappears. You are not measuring yourself against every person you meet. You are simply observing them as they are, without placing them above or below you. This creates a balanced presence. You are not competing. You are not submitting. You are simply there, and this neutrality is powerful because it removes the emotional fluctuations that most people operate in. It keeps your energy stable, your perception clear, and your behavior consistent. So the next time you feel impressed by someone, pause, notice the reaction. Ask yourself, am I seeing clearly or am I reacting to appearance? Let that initial reaction settle. Look deeper, observe patterns, pay attention to what is consistent, not what is immediately visible. Because the more you train yourself to stay grounded, the less you will be influenced by surface-level signals, and the less you are influenced, the more people will respect your presence. Not because you demanded it, not because you forced it, but because you are no longer reacting like everyone else. And that difference is impossible to ignore. 6. You speak with intention, not volume. Most people think power in conversation comes from talking more, speaking louder, or dominating the space. But if you observe carefully, the opposite is true. The more someone talks without control, the less seriously they are taken. Their words begin to lose shape, their message gets diluted, and eventually, people stop listening, even if they are still hearing. You need to understand this clearly. Words are not powerful because there are many of them. Words are powerful because they are precise. Right now, your speech is likely driven by impulse. You speak to fill silence, to prove a point, to defend yourself, to avoid discomfort, or to keep control of the moment. But when speech is driven by impulse, it becomes reactive, and reactive speech carries very little weight. In Buddhist understanding, there is a concept known as right speech, but most people misunderstand it. They think it only means speaking truthfully or kindly. That is only the surface. At a deeper level, right speech means speaking with awareness. It means your words are not coming from ego, from emotional spikes, or from the need to dominate. They are coming from clarity. When you begin to speak with intention, everything changes. First, you slow down, not artificially, but naturally. You are no longer rushing to respond. You allow a small pause before you speak, and in that pause, you decide what is actually worth saying. This alone removes a huge amount of unnecessary words from your communication. Second, you simplify. Most people overcomplicate their speech because they are trying to sound intelligent or convincing. They add extra explanations, extra details, extra emotion, but this weakens the message. When you speak with intention, you remove everything that is not essential. You say what matters, and you stop. And that stopping point is where most people fail. They keep talking even after their point is clear. They repeat themselves in different ways. They try to reinforce their argument again and again, but this repetition signals uncertainty. It tells the listener that you are not confident enough to let your words stand on their own. When you speak with intention, you trust your words. You say them once, clearly, and you allow silence to follow. That silence is not emptiness, it is space for your words to land. And this is where your presence becomes different. People are used to conversations where words are thrown constantly, without direction. But when you speak less, and each word carries meaning, people begin to listen differently. They pay attention, they process what you said. They feel that your words are not random, they are chosen. Another important shift is emotional control in speech. Most people speak from their emotional state. If they are angry, their words become sharp and reactive. If they are insecure, their words become defensive. If they are trying to impress, their words become exaggerated. In all these cases, speech is not controlled, it is driven by emotion. But when you speak with intention, you separate your words from your immediate emotional reaction. You might feel something internally, but you do not let it dictate how you speak. You choose your tone, your pace, your wording with awareness. And this creates stability, because now your speech is not fluctuating with your emotions. It remains consistent, calm, grounded. People feel this immediately. They sense that you are not trying to win the moment. You are not trying to overpower them. You are not trying to prove yourself. You are simply expressing what is necessary, and that simplicity carries authority. There is also a deeper layer to this. When you speak with intention, you are not attached to the outcome of your words. You are not desperate for agreement. You are not trying to control how the other person reacts. You say what is true, and you let it stand. This removes pressure from your communication, because now you are not speaking to get a reaction. You are speaking to express clarity. And when there is no pressure, your words become cleaner. Another thing you need to recognize is how much unnecessary speech you currently produce. Think about how often you speak just to maintain interaction. You comment on things that do not matter. You respond to every small statement. You feel the need to always contribute, but not every moment requires your voice. When you reduce unnecessary speech, you create contrast. Your silence becomes normal, and your words become noticeable. This contrast is what gives your speech weight. Without contrast, everything becomes noise. Also understand this clearly. Speaking with intention does not mean being quiet all the time. It means being selective. There are moments when you should speak fully, clearly, and directly, but even in those moments your speech remains controlled. You are not losing yourself in the flow of words. You are guiding it. You are aware of what you are saying as you are saying it, and this awareness creates precision. Over time, people begin to associate your voice with clarity. When you speak, they expect something meaningful. They do not expect noise. They do not expect emotional reactions. They expect direction, and that expectation alone increases your influence, because now you do not need to raise your voice to be heard. You do not need to repeat yourself to be understood. Your presence carries your message before your words even arrive. In Buddhism, this level of awareness in speech is a reflection of inner discipline. It shows that your mind is not scattered. It shows that you are not being pulled by every impulse. It shows that you have control over one of the most powerful tools you have, your words. So the next time you are in a conversation, observe yourself. Notice when you feel the urge to speak quickly. Notice when you start adding unnecessary details. Notice when your tone shifts because of emotion, and instead of following that impulse, pause. Choose your words. Keep them simple. Deliver them calmly, and then stop. Let the silence carry what you said. Because when you learn to speak with intention, you do not just communicate better, you become someone people listen to. And the moment people start listening differently is the moment they start taking you seriously. 7. You detach from the need to be liked. This is the one most people avoid, because it sounds simple, but it cuts directly into how you have been conditioned your entire life. From a young age, you were trained to seek approval, be polite, be agreeable, be accepted, do not upset people, do not stand out too much, adjust yourself so others are comfortable with you. And over time, this becomes automatic. You start shaping your behavior not based on what is true, but based on what will be accepted. At first, this seems harmless. You think you are just being kind, just being social, just being easy to get along with. But look deeper. If your decisions are constantly influenced by how others will feel about you, then you are not acting freely. You are negotiating your behavior in every moment, and people feel that. They may not consciously say it, but they sense when someone is trying to be liked. They sense the hesitation in your words, the softness in your boundaries, the way you avoid saying what needs to be said, and the moment they sense that you are prioritizing approval over truth, something shifts. They stop taking you seriously, because respect does not come from being liked. It comes from being stable. When you need to be liked, you become predictable. You avoid conflict even when it is necessary. You tolerate behavior that does not align with you. You laugh at things you do not find funny. You agree when you should question. And slowly, without realizing it, you teach people that your standards are flexible, and flexible standards lead to weak boundaries. In Buddhist understanding, this is attachment. Not attachment to a person, but attachment to approval. You are holding on to how others perceive you. You are trying to secure a positive image, and because of that you lose your center. Detaching from the need to be liked does not mean becoming cold or disconnected. It means you stop letting approval control your behavior. You stop adjusting yourself just to maintain comfort. You start acting from awareness instead of fear. This shift is uncomfortable at first, because when you stop seeking approval, you will notice something immediately. Not everyone will respond positively to you anymore. Some people will feel challenged. Some will feel uncomfortable. Some may even pull away. And this is where most people go back to old patterns. They think something is wrong. They think they need to fix it, to soften themselves again, to return to being agreeable. But that reaction comes from the same attachment you are trying to break. You need to understand this clearly. If your behavior is always designed to avoid discomfort in others, then you will never be taken seriously, because seriousness requires clarity, and clarity sometimes creates discomfort. When you detach from the need to be liked, you begin to say what is true, even when it is not easy, not aggressively, not emotionally, but calmly and directly. You stop hiding behind politeness when something needs to be addressed. You stop pretending to agree when you do not. And this creates a different kind of presence, because now people cannot predict you based on what will keep them comfortable. They have to engage with what is real, and that forces a shift in how they interact with you. They begin to respect your words, even if they do not always agree with them. Another important change happens internally. You stop overthinking every interaction. You are not replaying conversations in your head, wondering if you said the right thing, if you upset someone, if you should have acted differently. That constant mental noise begins to fade, because you are no longer trying to manage every perception. You act, you speak, and you allow the outcome to be what it is. This creates mental clarity, and that clarity reflects in your behavior. You become more direct, more stable, more grounded. You are not jumping between roles depending on who you are with. You are consistent. Consistency is one of the strongest signals of respect, because when people know that you will act the same way regardless of the situation, they begin to trust your presence. Not necessarily trust you in a personal sense, but trust that you are not unstable. Also understand this: when you stop needing to be liked, you naturally become more selective in your relationships. You are not trying to maintain connection with everyone. You are not forcing interactions that do not align with you. You allow distance where it is needed. And this selectiveness increases your value, because now your time and energy are not available to everyone. They are directed. They are intentional. People feel that. They sense that your attention is not automatic. It is not given just to keep things smooth. It is given where there is alignment, and that makes it more meaningful. There is also a deeper level of freedom in this. When you are not trying to be liked, you are no longer controlled by rejection. If someone disagrees with you, you do not collapse internally. If someone distances themselves, you do not chase. If someone does not approve of you, you do not immediately question your worth. You remain stable, and this stability is what most people lack. They are constantly adjusting themselves to avoid losing connection. But in doing so, they lose themselves. When you detach from this need, you reverse that pattern. You keep yourself, even if it means losing some connections, and that is where real strength is built. In Buddhism, this is part of letting go. Letting go of attachment to outcomes, to approval, to identity. You are not holding on to how you are perceived. You are simply acting with awareness and allowing others to respond however they choose. And this creates a quiet confidence. Not loud, not forced, not performative, but real. People feel that you are not trying to win them over. You are not trying to fit into their expectations. You are simply present as you are. And that presence is difficult to ignore, because most people are constantly adjusting themselves. When they meet someone who is not doing that, it stands out immediately. So the next time you feel the urge to adjust yourself just to be liked, pause. Ask yourself, am I acting from truth or from fear? If it is fear, let it go. Allow the discomfort. Say what is real. Hold your position calmly, because the more you practice this, the less you will depend on approval. And the less you depend on approval, the more people will respect you. Not because you demanded it, not because you forced it, but because you are no longer negotiating your value in every interaction. And that is something people recognize instantly. You keep thinking respect is something you earn from others. It's not. It's something you stop losing. Every time you over-explain, react emotionally, chase approval, or speak without control, you give it away. Not intentionally, but consistently, and over time, people learn how to treat you based on that. These behaviors are not tricks. They are not tactics to manipulate people. They are disciplines to control yourself, and that's the part most people avoid. They want quick results without changing their internal state. That doesn't work. If your mind is unstable, your behavior will expose it. If your emotions control you, your reactions will show it. If you need validation, your words will reveal it. You cannot fake presence. You cannot fake groundedness. People feel it before you even speak. So the real work is not out there, it is here. You reduce your words, you control your reactions, you observe instead of rushing, you stop being impressed by surface-level signals, you speak with intention, and most importantly, you let go of the need to be liked. At first, this will feel uncomfortable. You will feel like you are losing connection, losing control, losing your usual way of interacting. But what you are actually losing is weakness. What you are actually losing is dependency. And what replaces it is something most people never develop: clarity, stability, presence. And from that place, something changes without you forcing it. People listen more carefully. They think twice before speaking to you. They adjust their behavior around you, not because you demanded respect, but because your presence no longer allows anything less. That is the difference. You don't chase respect. You become someone who naturally receives it.